Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Who's ready to join me for another episode of True Crime? Are you always talking crime? I'm always talking crime. I'm always thinking about crime. I'm always researching the next true crime case that I can bring to you all. My name is Kimi, and I am the host of this podcast, Always Talking Crime. I've got a lot of new things up our sleeves for the month of May, and this episode that we're going to do today, I actually had this on my list of cases to do in May because, as we all know, Mother's Day is in May, and I've got a lot of cases that are going to be released that involve like moms that are killed, moms that kill, so on and so forth. So this was definitely on my list, but quite a few of you have reached out to me in messages on Instagram or Facebook and asked me, like, y'all requested this. So I thought, okay, well, I'll pull this one out now as a little warm-up for May, a little warm-up for Mother's Day, so to speak, and I will bring it to you now. I'm like super excited. Not that I'm excited about this case because it's terrifying simply, but I was so excited to get some feedback from some of my listeners and have you guys requesting some cases. If you have requested other cases in the past and I haven't done them yet, do not fret. Do not fret, dear friends. I am going to do them, okay? I have a lengthy list, and I promise that I will get to your requested case, okay? Because I don't plan on going anywhere besides just being right here with you, all right? So let's get on with this episode, shall we? All right, everybody. So before I start this story, I do want to mention that I'm sitting here. I've got the front door open. It's a beautiful day. My two puppies are like just lounging out on the couch, all relaxed, taking their little nappy nap. But it's really windy outside, and I've got a bunch of wind chimes. Me and my boyfriend are like kind of obsessed with wind chimes. So if you hear something in the background, that's probably what you're hearing, okay? So I just wanted to mention that. I love the sound. It's just so relaxing to me. So let's get on with this story. Nobody wants to imagine that a mother can harm her own child. Parents are supposed to protect and care for their children and raise them with unconditional love. From the moment you bring a bundle of joy into the world, you don't stop caring for them. Parents are always worried that something might happen to their precious child. So that's why it's always so shocking when you hear the horror stories about a mother murdering her own child. A mother is supposed to have natural compassion, and not loving her child goes against nature in so many ways. It simply makes no sense from biological, evolutional, and psychological standpoints. So the big question here is, what kind of psychotic mother is capable of committing such heinous crimes against her babies? Guys, buckle up. It's going to be a really bumpy ride, but this is the horrific story of Diane Downs. Elizabeth Diane Fredrickson was born on August 7th, 1955 in Phoenix, Arizona, to teenage parents Wesley and Willadine Fredrickson. Now, behind closed doors, Diane was allegedly being molested by her father as early as the age of 12, while he and her mother Willadine portrayed themselves as upstanding conservatives. Diane later reported cutting her wrists at the age of 13. She definitely seemed to struggle growing up and felt like she was abused and neglected by her parents. It's really difficult to know, though, what really truly happened, because as you'll hear throughout this story, Diane had a really difficult time telling the truth about anything. She always craved attention of any kind, so it's really hard to tell what is fact and what is fiction. So, although she was born Elizabeth Diane, when she became a teenager, she started going by the name Diane. I don't know why. It's not really listed in any of my case sources, which I will be putting in the notes on this podcast. But she just decided, that she wanted to go by the name Diane instead of Elizabeth. So as a freshman at Moon Valley High School, Diane began dressing more provocatively than she could get away with in the past, since her parents were such strict Baptists. She also started dating older boys. One of them was Diane Downs, and they soon became inseparable. They literally did everything together, and they were always out together looking for fun. The two graduated from high school together, but briefly parted ways afterwards. Diane went to Pacific Coast Baptist Bible College in Orange, California, and Steve enlisted in the U.S. Navy. Go Navy! They promised to be faithful to each other while they were separated, but Diane would ultimately be expelled from school after just 1 year for promiscuous behavior. So I'm not sure what's considered promiscuous behavior, but since it's like a Baptist Bible college, that could be something like holding hands, or who the heck really knows, like maybe showing PDA on campus. But as you hear more of this story, honestly, it really is probably more than that, because she likes sexy time with as many people as possible. So just listen to the rest of this story and you will be like, All right. So anyways, when they reunited in Arizona. Okay, I promise I won't sing anymore. The two of them got married on November 13th, 1973. So now Diane and Diane Downs are married. Almost immediately, however, their relationship began to suffer. Diane started to feel like her husband was just a replica of her father. She thought he was demanding and domineering. Then Diane's extramarital affairs caused a strain on their marriage, and she ended up leaving Steve and went back to live with her parents. But she was already pregnant by that point, so the couple decided to try to work things out. Diane was ecstatic about being pregnant, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she would know what true love really was. Christy was born in October of 1974, and Diane described her daughter as being her best friend. In Diane's own words, quote, "Christy was the first person who just really, really loved me," unquote. Shortly after this, however, Diane just up and left the young family and joined the Navy herself. Like, what the fuck? Like, apparently she didn't really enjoy being a parent. But being in the Navy didn't last long. 3 weeks into boot camp, she was back home. Apparently, quote unquote, the blisters were just really bad and she just couldn't deal with it, and she could not continue. But I seriously have to wonder if the military legit kicked her out of boot camp, because that seems like the crazy excuse ever to come back with. So I would not be surprised if Diane was showing more promiscuous behavior there at boot camp and the military just kicked her the fuck out. That just seems like, that's my thought. I've not seen that in any other case sources. I didn't hear that on any other podcast, but in my brain, I'm just kind of thinking, yeah, she was acting like a whore, and the military is not going to deal with that, especially at boot camp. So anyways, Diane liked being pregnant. She always told everybody that she loved to be pregnant. So their second daughter, Cheryl Lynn, was born in 1976. Nothing like having a crazy unhappy marriage. and just trying to piece it all back together by having another child. That never works out well. And guys, I can tell you that from personal experience because I have made that mistake. Anyways, after Cheryl Lynn was born, Steve decided to get a vasectomy. But guess what? It wasn't long before Diane was pregnant again. Steve, of course, accused Diane of cheating on him, and Diane claimed that the vasectomy just didn't work. So Diane ended up getting an abortion. And actually, she ended up naming that aborted child Carrie. So even though she never gave birth to the child for whatever demented reason, she decided to name the child. After that, Diane and Steve started working at a mobile home manufacturing company, and Diane was fooling around with some of their coworkers. Big surprise. As a result, Diane, she got pregnant yet again. She gave birth to Stephen Daniel Downs in December 1979, but they called him Danny. Steve was well aware that he wasn't the father, but he accepted the child as his own anyways. Way to go, Steve. That is super awesome that he just accepted Danny as his own. But by the year 1980, Steve and Diane had split up for good. After the divorce, she had countless affairs, but she was still trying to reconcile with Steve. So she just could not keep it in her pants, so to speak, but she still wanted to be with Steve. Now, one relationship in particular that Diane had after the divorce was with the man she met at work, and Diane wasted no time moving in with him and his kids. But it didn't take long for him to notice that as fun as Diane was at work, she was horrifying and hostile to live with. She even locked herself in the bathroom with a gun one night and threatened to kill herself. When a gunshot was heard, the man managed to get into the bathroom. Diane was just found sitting there on the bathroom floor. She was just sitting there. And he saw that there was a bullet hole in the floor of the bathroom. She's fucking cray-cray. So obviously that relationship did not continue. In order to bring in money, Diane decided to become a surrogate mother, which is so disturbing in retrospect when you hear what happens. Just the thought that she's helping somebody else give birth to a child, and now, there could be more children out there that were carried by her. Normally, I would think that surrogacy is amazing and selfless and all that kind of stuff, but in this case, it's just outright creepy, in my opinion. As it turned out, though, Diane didn't qualify after failing 2 psychiatric exams. Not just one, but 2. The test reports indicated that she was intelligent, but also psychotic. Diane seemed to think that it was very funny and never hesitated in making jokes about it to people. She didn't keep it a secret that she was psychotic. She was just making jokes to people and laughing about it, thinking it was hysterical. In 1981, Diane started working as a postal carrier for the United States Post Office. During that time, the children stayed with their parents, Steve, and also Danny's biological father in rotation. Neighbors reported that Diane didn't care for her children properly when they stayed with her. By all accounts from neighbors, acquaintances, and even friends and family, Diane Downs was an unfit mother who put absolutely everything before her children. They also noted that she was especially cruel to her daughter, Cheryl. Shortly before her death, Cheryl reportedly told people that she was scared of her mother. Spoiler alert, Cheryl dies. So I should have given you guys a trigger warning. I'm sorry. We're going to be talking about children dying, obviously, in some detail. So just keep that in mind. Trigger. Let me see. Yeah, so Cheryl reportedly was telling people that she was scared of Diane. One sitter related one specific incident that had happened. She had said, I caught Cheryl jumping on the bed, and I said that was not permitted. I made her sit in a chair and think about it. Cheryl sat quietly for a while, and then she looked up. Do you have a gun here? She asked. And then the babysitter said, of course not. Why? And then Cheryl responded with, I want to shoot myself. My mom says I'm bad. Which is just like totally heartbreaking that she had that belief about herself. So it was obvious that, Diane had, called her bad probably dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times, and just treated her so poorly that, the little girl herself just was obviously depressed and like feeling suicidal. Okay, everybody, now this part is going to be a huge what the fuck moment. Like, how the fuck does this even happen? But here we go. Despite failing those 2 psychiatric exams that I spoke about earlier that showed signs of Diane being a psychopath, Diane eventually got an offer to be a surrogate towards the end of that year. Like, how? I don't get it. But I guess it's the early 80s and shit was crazy back then, right? The early 80s is like a extension of the 70s, and I guess anything goes. But anyways, Diane got pregnant on the first try, and she was incredibly happy about it. As we know already, Diane equated her happiness and self-worth with being pregnant, but just not at all with raising children. Diane gave birth to a baby girl on May 8th, 1982. After handing the baby over to the rightful parents, Diane was paid a sum of $10,000. Soon enough, Diane wanted to make her passion a hobby and launch a surrogacy clinic. But thankfully, what the fuck? That venture failed, thankfully. Like, I can't even imagine that. But really, okay, side note here. Put on the brakes. $10,000. I mean, while it's a lot of money, maybe it was considered more money back in 1982. But if somebody offered me $10,000 to be a surrogate, that is just not enough money. Like, I loved being pregnant too. I've been pregnant 4 times. I have 4 healthy children. They're grown children now, but anybody who's had children knows that it just gets to be, you get so attached. Like, I would never be able to be so detached to be able to give up a baby that I felt moving inside my body. And plus, like, it's not so easy for everyone to bounce back after a pregnancy. So the thought of like all like the craziness that's going to happen in my body, like my body is actually going to be like hell after, like $10,000 is not enough for me. I don't know what the number is, but I would not give birth to a baby for somebody else for $10,000. So anyways, in 1981, Diane met Robert Knickerbocker. Everybody called him Nick. That was, what he went by, while working at the post office, and they embarked on an affair. He was a married man, but it didn't take long for Diane to become demanding of him. Diane wanted Nick to leave his wife and start a life with her, but Nick was only interested in a fling and decided eventually to end things with Diane. Now, in April 1983, Diane moved to Springfield, Oregon, and continued working as a postal service at the Cottage Grove post office. But Diane had not stopped being obsessed with Nick, not at all. She called him constantly, not taking his endless no's for an answer. Like, girlfriend was freaking obsessed. Finally, Nick had no choice but to tell Diane that he never wanted kids and that her children were the equivalent of, quote, too many strings attached. He told Diane that although he liked children, he really had no interest in ever being a daddy. I don't think that Diane Downs takes rejection very well, And it seems to me like this was the catalyst that caused her to do what she did that fateful night. All right, guys, here we go. On the night of May 19th, 1983, Diane Downs entered an emergency room in Springfield, Oregon. Her 3 children, Christy, age 8, Cheryl, age 7, and Danny, age 3, were all in the back seat of her car covered in blood after being shot point blank. Sadly, the emergency room staff declared Cheryl dead at the scene and placed the other 2 in the hospital with life-threatening injuries. When questioned about the events that occurred, Diane told everyone the story of a shaggy-haired man. He had flagged her down from the side of a dirt road while her 3 children were sleeping in the back seat. He demanded her car. She refused. I guess she had said, "You got to be kidding me." And because she refused, he then shot her children. After getting away, she said she got to the emergency room as quickly as she could. During the struggle with this shaggy-haired man, she also obtained a shot in her left arm, but it was not at all life-threatening. It wasn't long before the medical professionals on scene all felt that her mannerisms were way too calm for a person who had experienced such a traumatic event. Even more sketchy behavior was reported by Dr. Stephen Wilhite. He had just gotten home from the hospital when his beeper went off, so he rushed back for this emergency. When he first arrived at the hospital, he thought for sure that Christy was dead, but thankfully he was able to save her life. And when he updated Diane, it came with very, very suspicious results. Not one tear, he said, not one emotional reaction. She says things to me like, "Boy, this has really spoiled my vacation." And she also says, "That really ruined my new car. I got blood all over the back of it." He said that he knew within 30 minutes of talking to her that she was guilty. When the police arrived at the hospital, Diane immediately brought them to the scene of the crime, explaining that she had taken the children sightseeing after visiting a friend that night, which was a gigantic red flag. It was like 5,000 red flags sewn together to make one big red flag because it was dark that time of the night and there were literally no sights to see. On the car ride there, police were shocked that Diane was not in more of a panic or showing any signs of distress at all. But I guess they figured the trauma just hadn't set in for her yet. It's not until she walked through the crime with them that, she seemed like super suspicious to the police. She laughed and she cracked jokes the entire time, and she seemed very comfortable, even though her kids were at the hospital clinging to life and one of them had just been killed. When she came back to the hospital and was able to sit with her comatose daughter, Christy, it was reported that Diane kept squeezing Christy's hand and saying, "I love you, I love you, I love you," repeatedly with each and every eerie squeeze. During the investigation, forensic evidence did not match Diane's bizarre story at all. There was no blood on the driver's side of the door, nor was there any gunpowder residue on the driver's panel. Most damaging, witnesses reported that they saw Diane's car being driven really slowly towards the hospital, like at an estimated speed of 5 to 7 miles per hour. So this totally contradicted Diane's previous claim that she drove to the hospital at a high rate of speed after the shooting. Police also discovered that immediately upon arriving at the hospital, Diane made a phone call to Nick. When the police spoke with him, Nick reported to the police that Diane had stalked him and stalked him and stalked him and seemed willing to kill his wife if it meant that she could have him all to herself. Nick stated that he was so relieved that Diane had left for Oregon and he was able to reconcile with his wife. Diane did not tell police that she owned a .22 caliber handgun, but both Steve Downs, the ex-husband, and Nick told police that she did own one. Investigators later discovered that Diane bought this handgun in Arizona, and although they were unable to find the actual weapon, they did find unfired casings in her home with extractor markings from the same gun that shot the children. And I'm not a huge gun person. Like when I was a kid, my dad actually taught me and my sister how to shoot guns out at my grandparents' hunting camp, and it was a lot of fun. We would shoot at like beer cans and soda cans, mostly beer cans because my dad was a huge alcoholic. But yeah, like so that is like the most that I really know about guns. I keep meaning to like learn how to shoot a gun, like practice shooting a gun at a firing range. I want to get a concealed and carry permit, so just to keep myself super, super safe, but I just haven't done that yet. But I did learn that all markings on bullets are like a fingerprint on a person. So they could tell that they could tell by those unfired casings in Diane's home that those were from the same gun that shot all three of her kids and her in the arm, which is pretty cool. Like, I love forensics and, all that type of stuff. And I guess, that's what really started interesting me in true crime in the first place. Like all like the shows like Law and Order SVU and Forensic Files and Criminal Minds. And even though, a lot of the stuff is fabricated, not all of it is. It's just super, super interesting, what can be found out in an investigation, But anyways, on May 25th, Cheryl Ann was buried. And while her other children were fighting for their lives in the hospital, Diane started giving a bunch of media interviews, telling weird stories and maintaining her innocence. Unfortunately for Diane, her story didn't add up. It was filled with unnecessary details that brought down the legitimacy of her statements. And that's super common when people are lying. Like if somebody's giving like a whole bunch of motherfucking details that you didn't ask for, that's like a huge like they've got to be lying, because otherwise why would they be going on and on and on with all these other stupid details? It was clear that Diane loved all the attention. She was an attention whore. Most people can't put a sentence together after going through something so heartbreaking, let alone run around giving interviews to everybody. She didn't seem sad or even shed a tear for her poor children. Doctors were actually shocked at her demeanor following the incident. Their suspicions heightened even more during one of Diane's later visits to Christy, who was still unable to speak because she suffered a stroke. Christy's eyes just glazed over with obvious fear, and the numbers on her heart rate and blood pressure monitors jumped dramatically as soon as Diane walked into her hospital room. Later on, when Christy regained her speech, the facts were clear. She was like super afraid to tell the police who had done this to her, okay? She was afraid. So they ended up having Christy speak to a child psychologist who took quite a bit of time gaining Christy's trust in order to get her to tell everybody who had shot her. And what the psychologist did was, to gain her trust, was to get her to write the name of the person, or write down the person that shot her and her siblings and put it into an envelope and seal it. And then the psychologist would throw that envelope into the fire. She had like a fireplace apparently in her office. They had repeated this process together over and over again until Christy was finally able to reply quietly and simply with "my mom" when asked who shot her. So based on this evidence, Diane was arrested 9 months after the event took place. So on February 28th, 1984, Diane was charged with the murder. She was charged with 2 counts each of attempted murder plus criminal assault. Diane's 31-day jury trial in Lane County Circuit Court in Eugene, Oregon, was one of the most widely covered murder trials in Oregon history. Diane played to the cameras lined up outside the Lane County Courthouse when she arrived and departed each day, forever smiling and waving to the assembled reporters, to the photographers, to the television cameramen, and all of the spectators. She seemed to bask in the spotlight outside the courtroom. But inside the courtroom, Diane was taking a beating from some unrelentless prosecutors who had obviously done their homework. They had some key witnesses who shot holes through every piece of her story. The most damaging testimony came from her own surviving daughter, Christy. On the witness stand, Christy Ann Downs testified that her mother stopped the car off a rural road. She got out of the car and went back to the trunk. The girl then testified that her mother opened the trunk, shut it, and returned to the car with something in her hand. Seconds later, she heard the first shot. When asked by Frederick Hughey, Lane County Deputy District Attorney, how she knew her mother fatally shot her sister, Christy Ann replied in a quivering voice, "I watched her. My mom did it." Then, under Hughey's questioning, Christy Ann tearfully told the jury that her mother leaned over the back seat of the car. This is just terrible, you guys. Her mother leaned over the back seat of the car and shot her brother Danny and then her. Despite some pointed cross-examination by Diane's attorney, James C. Jagger, Christy Ann denied anyone coached her or told her to lie about the shooting. Jagger had suggested in his opening remarks that others had told the girl what had happened the night of the shooting and that she had been led to believe that her mother had committed the acts. Testifying in her own defense, Diane later denied she shot her children. Testifying in her own defense, Diane later denied she shot her children because they stood in the way of her and her former lover. So she was totally denying it, even though that's what they were saying. I read my notes weird. The way I worded it, it was weird. So I apologize. But she was still denying that she didn't do anything. She wouldn't hurt her kids. In fact, she had said something like, if I was going to kill my kids, wouldn't I have done a better job? Wouldn't I have succeeded in doing it? So, which is just a weird fucking thing to say. And in interviews and stuff too, people were asking her if, or they were saying that the kids were all lucky or that she was lucky. The people interviewing her were saying, yeah, you're so lucky, Diane. And Diane would be like, well, you know who is lucky? My kids are the lucky ones. Because if I wouldn't have only been shot in the arm, then at least 2 of them wouldn't have survived. So she was legitimately calling attention to how awesome she was and that the kids were the lucky ones because of her. And it just makes me if I could punch her in the face, it would be very enjoyable to do so. Are you guys with me on that one? I'm sure y'all are, because this is just craziness. There was also parts during the trial that there was a song that was playing in the car during the shooting. And it was the song Hungry Like the Wolf by Duran Duran. And I was always a big fan of Duran Duran. In 1984, Duran Duran was my favorite band. I had posters of them plastered all over my bedroom wall. And it wasn't until 1985, I still loved Duran Duran, but I started loving Motley Crue and more of the heavy metal, hair bands, stuff like that, Bon Jovi, all that kind of stuff. But I loved Duran Duran, and I finally got to see them in concert. I think it was like in 2011. They came down here to a music festival in my area, and oh my gosh, I was like so happy. But I had no idea at the time that this song, Hungry Like the Wolf, had anything to do with a murder case, because like I said, I had never heard of this case. I really wasn't into true crime at that time. I didn't really pay attention to anything that was going on. But it like sickens me now, because like every time I hear this song again, knowing what I know, I'm gonna have to turn it off, despite the fact that I like it. But Christy had said that when her mom killed Cheryl Lynn and shot her and Danny, Hungry Like the Wolf was playing on the radio. So, inside the courtroom, the prosecution decided to play that song in the courtroom in front of everybody. And fucking Diane started like dancing in her seat and like jamming to the song and like, you know, singing along with it, which is just so fucking cringy. Like, she like had like no common decency whatsoever. The prosecution contended that Diane Downs shot her 3 children because her ex-boyfriend Nick in Chandler, Arizona didn't want any part of a woman who had 3 children. But Diane insisted she loved her kids, that she never cared enough about any man to ever want to harm her children. The jury of 9 women and 3 men deliberated 36 hours before returning its unanimous verdict. I can't believe that it took them even 36 hours. What the fuck? But like, it would have taken me like 36 minutes, if even that. But they returned the unanimous verdict of guilty of murder for the shooting death of Cheryl Lynn Downs, I'm sorry. She was also found guilty of attempted murder in the shootings of Christy Ann Downs and Stephen Daniel Downs. Guilty also of first-degree assault for the attack on all 3 of her children. Diane, who was carrying her 4th child at the time, showed little emotion as the verdict was read by Circuit Judge Gregory G. Foote. Whether or not it was a ploy for sympathy, just in case she needed some in the event of a jury trial, or whether she merely needed to feel that quote-unquote love once again within her, she had apparently gone out and got pregnant once again from one of her favorite studs. It was a guy that was, I don't know, I heard it was a coworker from some sources, but I actually think that it was somebody along her postal route, like who lived, like somebody that she would deliver mail to. But she showed up at his house one night with some whiskey and some weed, knowing full well that she was ovulating and would get pregnant. She made sure to explain the symbolic meaning of her action to a TV reporter. She said, quote, this is going to make a lot of people mad. I got pregnant because I miss Christy and I miss Danny and I miss Cheryl so much. You can't replace children, but you can replace the effect they give you. And they give me love. They give me satisfaction. They give me stability. And they give me a reason to live and a reason to be happy. And after all, children are so easy to conceive. Like, what in the actual fuck? Like, conceiving children is not easy for every single woman. So I'm always super sympathetic to women who have struggled with, their fertility. And for her just to blatantly, put it out there and say it's so easy, it just fucking grinds my gears. I mean, and then, you gotta wonder, why? I mean, God has his own reasons, but why is it that it was so easy for this fucking beast of a person to have kids and to become pregnant. And there's so many awesome women out there that struggle, for years and years and years. And some, never get to experience pregnancy or motherhood. So just the fact that she said that, oh my gosh, like I was like shocked the first time I heard that. I was shocked and then pissed, and then now I'm just mostly pissed because about her, like, nothing really shocks me anymore that I read or hear. But between the verdict and the sentencing, the court had to recess while Diane gave birth to a beautiful child whom she named Amy. The father of the baby denied her, and in time, a caring family by the name of Babcock adopted Amy and renamed her Rebecca. At sentencing, Diane was given life in prison plus 50 years. They should have given her the needle. But anyways, that's just my opinion. She was given life in prison plus 50 years. Psychiatrists diagnosed Diane with narcissistic, histrionic, and antisocial personality disorders. Most of her sentence was to be served consecutively. The judge made it clear that he did not wish Diane Downs to ever regain her freedom. All right, so you'd think that would be the end of the story, right? But you can see there's some more time left on this podcast episode, yes? So that is not the end of the story, not at all. Let me continue. You guys aren't going to believe this. Authorities had not heard or seen the last of Diane Downs. On July 11th, 1987, 3 years after she was sentenced, Diane pulled off a daring escape from the Oregon Women's Correctional Center in Salem. Authorities said that she scaled two, not just one, but two 18-foot fences surrounding the prison, climbed under a pickup truck, and waited several minutes before calmly just walking away. Prison officials later said they believed Diane wore several layers of clothing to avoid puncture wounds from the barbed wire that was on top of the fences. A tattered striped shirt was found under the pickup truck where Diane reportedly hid after scaling both of those prison fences. Like, I cannot believe that she did not get caught. Like, that is like fucking craziness to me. An alarm hooked to the outside fence rang briefly at 8:40 a.m. that morning, but the prison officials didn't think anything of it. They said that the sensitive alarm went off accidentally at least once a day due to anything from a strong wind to a bird. However, when a nurse arriving at the prison 15 minutes later reported seeing a suspicious woman climb out from under a pickup truck and walk away, she said she believed the woman was Diane Downs. The prison guards did a quick emergency roll call and discovered that, yes, Diane Downs was missing. A massive search of the entire Salem area was launched. Ironically, Diane, wearing a civilian-type clothing, was picked up hitchhiking. Could you imagine picking up this fucking psychotic fucking bitch? Like, hitchhiking? Well, I would never pick up a hitchhiker. But apparently back then, hitchhiking, was a pretty regular thing for people. But anyways, somebody picked her up virtually right across the street from the prison. And adjacent to that was Division 2 headquarters of the Oregon State Police. So, like, right there in front of the police station and the prison, they picked Diane Downs up hitchhiking. It's just nuts. The unwitting couple that picked her up drove her to the site of a restaurant at State and 24th Street, 3 blocks from the prison, and that's where Diane got out. The couple would later tell authorities that Diane said she needed to get to a phone quickly because her boyfriend had just been injured in an automobile accident, which makes no sense because she was just picked up right in front of the police station. So if she had to report that her boyfriend had been injured in a car accident, she was like right in front of the building where she could have gotten help. So that's just stupid. But anyways, Diane's escape triggered a multi-state search, which surprisingly ended 10 days later back in Salem, Oregon, less than a half a mile from the prison. You'd think that she was going to take off and like be long gone, right? But no, she didn't. She was just a half a mile away the entire time. So indentations on a piece of paper found in Diane's cell were analyzed by the FBI. Using an electrostatic process, the FBI was able to enhance those indentations on the paper, and that included an address of a house and also a map showing the house's location. Oregon State Police conducted a drive-by surveillance of that rundown house for 2 days. Then the state and local police served a search warrant on the house, and they found Diane with 4 men inside. I can only imagine what the hell was going on in there with promiscuous Diane and, 4 men, not just 1 man, but 4 men. The 4 men were charged with hindering prosecution. I guess that one of the men, the guy that owned the house, was married to Diane's cellmate. And I'm sure that when that woman told her, I'm sure Diane said, hey, I'm planning on escaping. I'm sure her cellmate gave her the address to her and her husband's home, which is moronic. But I'm sure that chick would never be like, oh yeah, and by the way, it's okay if you want to fuck my husband and his 3 friends while you're there, God. But anyways, in November 1987, Diane was transferred to the Correctional Institution for Women in Clinton, New Jersey, a maximum security prison. In exchange, Oregon prison officials agreed to take 2 New Jersey criminals. So they wanted Diane out of Oregon, out of that area. I guess the Babcocks that had adopted the baby were super afraid that Diane was going to find them and try to abduct or hurt the baby that used to be named Amy but was now named Rebecca. And then wherever I will tell you in a minute where Christy and Danny is. But they were also terrified that Diane was going to track them down and, try to see them, or worse yet, finish the job, But so Oregon had to agree to take 2 of their criminals because New Jersey agreed to take fucking Diane Downs, the nasty bitch. Anyways, Diane made news again in September 1991 when Marion County Circuit Judge Dwayne R. Erskard denied her request for a new trial. Erskard wrote his decision in a letter to Diane's attorneys saying that she had been adequately represented by lawyers in her trial and appeal. The Oregon Court of Appeals upheld her convictions in February 1987. But Diane Downs, whose story was the subject of at least 2 novels and a made-for-television movie, still continues to maintain her innocence in her never-ending efforts to overturn those convictions. From her new home, which is the Washington State Women's Correctional Institute in Gig Harbor, Washington. Now, Diane's former lover, Nick, and his wife remain happily married to this day. Her ex-husband, Steve Downs, still lives in Oregon. Now, this is super, super cool, guys, because this entire episode has been such a Debbie Downer. And really upsetting, but this is the silver lining of the entire case. So if you've been upset, if you've been kind of feeling oh my God, I can't believe somebody would do this, here is the moment, the heartwarming moment. The surviving children, Christy and Danny, survived the entire ordeal. Danny is confined to a wheelchair but is happy. Both consider the ending of their story to be happily ever after. In 1986, they moved into the home of their new loving adoptive parents, Fred and Joanne Hughey. So Fred Hughey was the prosecuting attorney in the courtroom, and he and his wife just fell in love with these kids and literally adopted them. Christy has given some interviews throughout the years, but Danny has never given a single interview as far as I could find. Now, in addition, guys, I didn't put a lot about the other little girl, Rebecca Babcock, into this podcast episode, but she did reach out to Diane when Diane was in jail. She had even done some interviews, I think, on Oprah. So if you guys want to dig deeper into this story, you could Google her name. A whole bunch of stuff is going to pop up. So apparently, Rebecca, as she grew up into being a teenager, although she was super happy with her adopted family, she decided that she wanted to maybe get to know her biological mother, and they exchanged a few letters, but Diane, was super fucking insane in the letters, and, continuously talked about the fact that, she was innocent and never did anything, and it just got to be really stressful on Rebecca, apparently. So Rebecca cut off all contact with Diane, which is smart of her, because Rebecca Babcock is going to be able to live a much happier life. Hopefully she's gotten plenty of therapy, because I can't even imagine what it would be like knowing that is your biological mother. But at least she tried, so she can't ever live her life with regrets of what if I could have gotten to know my biological mom. But it's for the best. I'm sure that she moved on from that. But there's lots of interviews. I've watched a few of them. There's also a book called Small Sacrifices by Anne Rule, Rule. And there was also a made-for-TV movie based on that book. Farrah Fawcett, the late Farrah Fawcett, starred in it, as well as Ryan O'Neal, who was her real-life husband at the time. I've never seen it. I do remember seeing that advertised late, when I was younger, but I didn't know what it was about. I never watched it. I really wasn't, it didn't seem like anything interesting to me. I'm sure my mom watched it back in the day, but it's not. I haven't been able to find it on anything. I do want to look on Amazon again, because I think that's the only place I haven't looked. But yeah, so if you guys can find that book by Anne Rule, yeah, I'm sure it's a really good read. I don't really get a chance to do much reading now besides of books anyways. I do my research by reading articles and, just scouring so many different websites. But there's so much more out there, guys. So many podcasts, when they do the story of Diane Downs, they'll put it in 2 different episodes. But I didn't want to do that to you guys. So I tried to condense everything as much as possible and just make it one episode. At the other end of the things, some podcasts had an episode of Diane Downs that was 20 minutes long or 25 minutes long. And there's no way that you could talk about everything that happened in 20 or 25 minutes. So I didn't even bother to listen to those. But anyways, I really, really hope that you've enjoyed this. Please, if you could, wherever you listen to this podcast, if you have not done so, please click the follow button, because that helps in so many ways. It helps me be recognized on Spotify, for instance. If you follow it on there, it's going to start showing up for more true crime fans that listen to other podcasts. And another thing that really, really helps get it out there and noticed is if you rate it. And of course, I want you to rate it 5 stars. So if you're not going to rate it 5 stars, just don't fucking rate it. But anyways, rate it 5 stars, and more people are going to notice it. More people are going to see it pop up on there. Hey, if you listen to Morbid, you might like Always Talking Crime. So, yeah, so this is a brand new baby podcast, like I said, and I'm really excited about, growing this community together. May, you guys, I'm going to be giving you some more content. So, I'm going to be talking more about that in the weeks to come. But just know that I really appreciate each and every single one of you for listening. But it is really helpful if you also click the follow button and you rate 5 stars this podcast. If there's a place for you to put a review too, that's even more awesome. Like, share it on your Facebook profile if you could. Share it in your stories. There's so many different ways that you guys can help me get the word out about this podcast, and I can keep it going because, I'm not going to lie, I'm having tons and tons of fun doing this with everybody. But, and I have so many, I have a big long list of cases, and I can't wait to hear what cases you guys want to hear me do. So don't be shy. Don't feel like you can't slide into my DMs and request a certain case that you want to hear me do. Email me. You can email me at alwaystalkingcrimepodcast @gmail.com. On Instagram, I'm Always Talking Crime Podcast. I'm not really doing anything on Facebook, but I am on Facebook, and I do post things on my personal profile. I know I've said this before. I did just change my TikTok to being Always Talking Crime Podcast. I think it's just Always Talking Crime, because by putting podcast in there, it was too long. So you can find me on TikTok now. I made my first true crime TikTok on there yesterday while I was at my job. So that was pretty fun, and I'm going to keep growing that. But honestly, there's not enough time in the day for me to hit all the platforms just yet. I'm just doing the best I can, just being a one-woman show. So help me out, will you? I really appreciate everything that you're doing so far. So I guess it's going to be next week that I discuss my next case. I'm going to try to get my boyfriend to do this next case with me, because it's another doozy, but it'll be actually pretty funny because it has something to do with dating sites, and he and I actually met on a dating site. Actually 2 different dating sites on the same day. So it would actually be totally hilarious if he would record it with me, but we'll have to see how our schedules vibe with each other, because we're both so incredibly busy that I'm not sure if he will be able to do it or not, but I'm going to try. And I guess I'm going to cut this here because I have to get ready to go teach a Zumba-thon fundraiser with 9 other Zumba instructors, and it's going to be a freaking blast. But my hair is wet. When I got out of the shower, I started recording this podcast, and I need to blow dry it and put on some cute Zumba clothes. Anyways, guys, until next time, I love you, and I hope you keep talking crime.